everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a wonderful start to February this year. St. Valentine's Day is coming up very soon here, so I wanted to share with you a few ideas that I had that you could incorporate into your celebration and festivities. It's funny, just now I went back and had to re-record what I just said because I noticed I had said that it was Valentine's Day originally, and I caught myself and realized I can't believe this. I'm falling into the same thing that everybody else falls into, where we omit the word saint from St. Valentine's Day. So I've heard a lot about the origins of this feast day. Some people say it's not technically the feast of St. Valentine. I've heard many things. So I will link a few articles below just about the origins of St. Valentine's Day, why we celebrate, and who St. Valentine was. But I wanted to share with you the ways that I am celebrating this year and how I am going to do what I can to keep Christ in this celebration. What is love? It means so many things to so many different people. But we are told that there is no greater love than laying your life down for somebody, for your friends, as we see in Scripture, and the way that Christ literally laid his life down for us. That's the ultimate form of love. I've heard it said that love is willing the good of the other, and that happens even to the point of death in Christ's case. So we as Christians know that that is the ultimate form of love, and then we have this holiday that comes up and we want to totally forget about the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate willing of the good of the other, that love that Jesus had for us, and make it this funny, silly day and think about, Cupid flying around with arrows, which, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that you cannot have fun and you can't celebrate in those ways too, but I think it's extremely necessary to place a greater emphasis on what love actually is. What we're told from Scripture is the ultimate form of love. So as much as I enjoy hearts and heart-related things, and I will be having some heart-themed decorations in my house, I wanted to have a few other decorations that were a little bit more Christ-centered and focused on faith. So I was thinking about what I could do, and the thought came to mind of those little heart conversation candies. I forget the exact name of them, but they're these little pastel-colored hearts, and they have different sayings on them, like text me or fax me, for those of you who still use a fax machine. And then there's some other things, and sometimes they get a little raunchy, I would say. And I thought, well, how can I incorporate Christ into this? And then I was thinking, okay, love, what comes to mind? And I was thinking, love is patient, love is kind, from Corinthians. So I had this idea to cut out little hearts and form a banner, and on each heart I wrote, love is patient, love is kind, love always protects, and then the last one, love never fails. And I'm going to string them together, and make a banner. I took a little bit of footage as I was doing this. Sometimes I get distracted in working on my craft and I forget to complete my DIY footage. So I'm going to insert what I have real quick, but it's not the most perfect DIY, but you get the point. I started off by printing out a heart shape from my printer, and then I cut it out. Now, time to cut. After cutting out my heart template, I picked out a piece of paper. I thought this one was really pretty because it's sparkly, and so I laid the heart on there and just used it to cut around, and so I can make the shape out of my nice paper. Ta-da! Now we have our heart shape on the nice piece of paper. I took a red Sharpie marker and just wrote out the words that I wanted to write on each piece, and then I lined them up so I could see how they will look when they're all in a row together. And then afterwards I went over the writing again in Sharpie to make it look a little bit nicer and more evened out. This video is not sponsored by Sharpie, by the way, but that's the one I used. You could write anything on them, really. You could customize them to your kids' names or your family. You could write an attribute of your spouse or your children that you love and write it on there. But for me, I just decided to do this. And as I was working on my DIY project, my family was also partaking in making some Valentines. So my husband made a few, and my stepdaughter made all of her Valentines for her class. I couldn't believe she did it in the amount of time we were just hanging out and doing Valentines. So Valentines are covered a few weeks early, and there's something about making them yourself that is really fun, and you don't have to worry about what kind of language is going to be inside of ones that you may buy from a store. So if you're not really into crafting or not very crafty, this may not apply as much to you, but it could be fun to just get out some paper, get out some scissors, put the phone down, and spend some quality time with your children, just having fun and making Valentines. They do not have to be perfect, they do not have to be fancy, but you can kind of take it as far or as simple as you'd like it to go. But there's something about spending that time and enjoying your children that's a great source of love for them, to see your involvement and participation in it. Not that it's bad if you don't, but it could be a good way to unify your family. No stress, put on some music, hang out, do it on a weekend, and also get your Valentines done for school if you have kids in school, or maybe you have a homeschool group or something like that that you'd like to give those Valentines to. Quick story about this shirt. I got this shirt years ago. Funny now that I think about it in this moment, a YouTuber was wearing it and she pulled it off really well, so I bought it. It doesn't look quite the same as it looked on her, but I still really love it. I wear it every year for Valentine's Day, and then I store it and only wear it on Valentine's Day, with the exception of today. I was thinking about this sweater. I guess it's more of a sweater, huh? And I bought this sweater years ago, before I was, obviously married, had kids, anything like that, before I even knew my husband. Anyway, I remember wearing this sweater and feeling so hopeful of the future. And when I got this, and I think the reason why I've saved it for so long and wear it every year, is that it is a reminder for me to be joyful even when things don't go my way. For example, at the time, I really wanted to get married. I really wanted to find somebody, and I didn't have anybody. So instead of using St. Valentine's Day as a sad day where I was dwelling in the fact that I was single and lonely and all of those types of things, I decided that I was determined to use it as a way to love the people who were already in my life. So I started making Valentines for my family, my siblings, my parents, for a few of my friends, and I was so surprised because they started doing the same for me. And before that, St. Valentine's Day wasn't really a huge thing in my family. Sometimes my mom would do maybe something kind of special for me on that day with hearts or something of that nature, but it was never something that I fully embraced until later down the road. And I think that it wasn't until that time that I realized fulfillment doesn't come from a significant other, it comes from God, and it's something that you find within in that way. So over time, I started viewing St. Valentine's Day a little bit differently, and instead of thinking about not having a boyfriend or husband, I realized that I could give love to the people around me in a unique way. Since I didn't have a significant other to love, I could use that energy for somebody else. And even now, even though my husband is always going to be my priority and my kids, I think it is important, if you have a little bit of additional time, to just quickly reach out to some single people in your life who may be feeling unloved and like nobody is reaching out to them at this time. They may be sad about being single, and so think of some of those people in your life who may be lonely or may feel sad because they don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend who can share love with them on this day, and reach out to them. So for me, I have a few cousins that I know are single. I have a cousin who's a single mom, and I have a few people who are in college, and so those are going to be some people I'm going to reach out to that day. It can be as simple as a text message, but for me, I am going to write a little card and send it in the mail, because sometimes there's nice about getting something in the mail that's a fun surprise and really makes you feel a little bit extra loved. So maybe think about just one person who you normally wouldn't think about on that day, but who may be feeling sad, and reach out to them. Do something a little bit nice and special to bring joy to their day, to bring Christ's love, the joy of Christ's love to them. One of my favorite YouTube channels is Buffering Saint. Her name is Heather. She's such a sweet person, and I love all of her videos. She's a Catholic convert, so she has an amazing perspective that some cradle Catholics like myself may not have. She's a wife and mother, and she loves books, and did a video about some of her recommended books, and it was so sweet of her to feature my book in her video. So thank you again, Heather Buffering Saint, for that. It was so exciting to see that. So another book that she recommended that I had heard a little bit about, but it wasn't until her video that I said, oh, I need to definitely go buy this book right now, is this one right here. It is called Catholic All Year, and the author is Kendra Tierney. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's funny because I think I follow her on Instagram, so I haven't read it yet, but I have flipped through, and I definitely went to the Valentine's Day section. I briefly read over it. So this is really cool because it gives you some wonderful suggestions on how to be Catholic all year, how to celebrate the feast days and Lent, and it says liturgical living for real life. So I love this. I'm so excited to be reading it. I can update you as I read more, but this gives some great Valentine's Day suggestions too. And I love how the author mentions that celebrating St. Valentine's Day with her spouse was so important to her. And so I was thinking, okay, what are some ways that I could celebrate with my husband? Normally, we always give each other a card for Valentine's Day. It just seems to be what we typically do. My husband is so great about finding really awesome cards to give me or making them, and he always writes really fun, happy, uplifting things in them, so I always look forward to getting cards from him. He's just the best card giver I've ever met in my life. So that's definitely a tradition that I think we have for Valentine's Day, but I was thinking, well, what could we do beyond that? And of course, going on a date night is always helpful, and I think one thing at this time of the year that some married couples could fall into is you think, well, of course my husband knows I love him, or of course my wife knows I love her. I tell her all the time, and I do this and that for her. But sometimes if you aren't going on dates or just doing things simply for fun with each other, sometimes people can tend to think, well, what if they don't love me? Or just internalize it in a different way that's completely untrue and unnecessary. So just be mindful of that. Even if you tell somebody you love them, think of some additional ways you can show them. The love languages that everybody talks about are a guide. Don't get too hung up on thinking that you know their love language, that you forget to still do some of the other things and other ways to show your spouse that you love them. One gift idea that I have that goes beyond the typical chocolates and flowers, which I do think are awesome, especially as a chocolate lover like myself, but you could get your spouse a book to read, and you could even get 2 copies of the same book. That way you could read them together and both be holding a book. You can get one book and share it, whatever you want to do, but finding a book specifically about marriage or relationships could be very beneficial for you to read together, and that's something that you can do together at night before bed that doesn't have anything to do with your phones or technology, and so it can be a great way to help you bond and grow together in your relationship. A few book recommendations that I have. This one is really cool. It's called The Mission of the Family. There are some great topics. It's a quick, easy, short read. It's by John Leonetti. So that's one that I like that's about family. Another one that we started reading right around when we first got married is called Just Married, the Catholic Guide to Surviving and Thriving During the First 5 Years of Marriage by Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak. I forget how you pronounce their last name. They have several books, so this is a good one. This one is pretty large. It was gifted to us by our neighbor actually, and it is called Life-Giving Love, Embracing God's Beautiful Design for Marriage by Kimberly Hahn. So I think that is Scott Hahn's wife. So I haven't gone through this yet, just briefly reading it. It seems like such a good book. I trust the source that gave it to me, but it could be something to look up the reviews for and see if it's something you may like. Lately, my husband and I have been reading the Catechism of the Catholic Church together just to gain a better understanding of our faith, and it's a good thing to have if you're Catholic, even if you're not married, so this could be a good thing for you to pick up. Another one, this is a good book too. It's called The Rhythm of Life by Matthew Kelly, but he also has a book called The 7 Levels of Intimacy, I believe it's called. I have the ebook, that's why I picked this up to remind myself, but that's another good one about relationships and stuff. So anything about relationships, but specifically regarding your faith, something that can help you grow together would be a great idea for a Valentine's Day gift. Hopefully these tips gave you some ideas on things that you could do for St. Valentine's Day. Keeping Christ in the day is essential for anything you do, but especially for St. Valentine's Day or a holiday, holy day like this. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me. I appreciate all of you very much. I hope you have a wonderful start to the month, and if you're watching this anytime around St. Valentine's Day, know that you are loved, and I hope that this day can be something that is a positive, uplifting, joyful day and experience for you. Bye everyone.